Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to /IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens truly think that everyone on Earth is meant to serve them, and who cares about anyone else, right? And in today's episode, one smug Karen attacks someone who she thinks is an employee, and it's the worst mistake of her life. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lineup. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened a couple of weekends ago, and I'm still cringing. My husband and I were Disney bounding, and as a refresher, Disney bounding is when fans wear regular clothes inspired by a Disney character's color palette or aesthetic. It's a way to express your love for a character without violating Disney's very strict rules about impersonation, because adults are absolutely not allowed to wear costumes in the parks, especially ones that might confuse guests into thinking you're a cast member or character performer. With that out of the way, the day this happened, I was channeling Snow White. I was wearing a yellow tennis skirt, blue tee, red cardigan, red belt, and a cute apple-shaped purse. My husband was grumpy. He wore a shirt that read, "I didn't think I would become a grumpy old man, but here I am, nailing it." He was also wearing brown shorts and a floppy brown bucket hat. Now, it might be important to say here that we are in our 50s. In no way could anyone mistake us for being the actual Disney-employed cast members who are playing Snow White or Grumpy. So that said, we were walking past the German pavilion on our way to our dinner reservation at Garden Grill when this woman with two little girls flags us down. The woman didn't ask, she just told us that her kids wanted pictures with Snow White and Grumpy. That's when I politely explained that we were just guests, not characters, and we're actually late for a dinner reservation. Hearing that, she immediately gets huffy, saying she didn't want to wait in that ridiculous line to see the real Snow White, and her kids were already excited, so take the picture with them. I of course tried to say no again, but the woman waves us off and she literally pushes her kids towards us while pulling out her phone. Cue the awkward frozen smiles while my husband, bless his grumpy soul, mutters, "This is why I don't go to Magic Kingdom dressed like this." After what felt like an eternity of standing there, we finally had to excuse ourselves and make a break for it. And for those wondering, yes, this could 100% get you kicked out of the park or have your annual passes revoked. Disney takes character integrity very seriously, even if you're just a fan in a color-coordinated outfit. So the moral of the story is just because someone looks Disney adjacent doesn't mean they're on the payroll. We were just two nerds trying to get our Mickey-shaped waffles in peace. Guys, I freaking love this so much, and that is totally a parent thing to do. Like, that is a parent who is sick and tired of their kids whining while being dragged around Disney. Oh, I'm not gonna stand in that long line. My kids won't know the difference. Come take a picture with them so they'll shut up. I just can't wait for the kids to grow up and see that picture and realize, oh my goodness, mom made us take a picture with two random people at Disney so we'd stop crying. Oh, the memories that mom created that day. Okay, so this happened a long time ago. I was a young teenager, and I was with my mom at a beauty supply store after she picked me up from school that day. I was wearing my school uniform with my mom's black work cardigan because I was cold. We were browsing, and I was holding her basket, just grabbing stuff off the shelves for her to see, as I'm an inch taller than my mom. We were in the middle of looking at something before I just walked off to grab something else in another part of the store with my basket in hand. I was alone, scanning a shelf, still with the basket of stuff in my hand, when I hear, "Excuse me," and felt someone standing behind me. Now, I thought I was blocking her path or something, so I moved even closer to the shelves, and I mumble out, "I'm sorry." I also want to note that the aisles aren't even that small to begin with. There's so much space. And that's when I felt it. I feel a hand pushing my shoulder. So I turn around, wondering why the hell this person was touching me. Anyway, when I turned around, terrified, I think she finally realized that I was not, in fact, an underpaid minimum wage worker that she wanted to terrorize. That's when my mom comes rounding the corner and she says, "Hey Jess, I found something else, come see." So I ran away from the lady and I didn't look back. My mom asked me what happened with the lady and I said nothing really happened. She just wanted to pass, I think. So we continued to browse the store for another 10 minutes. At the time, it really wasn't important enough for me to remember, or it didn't register in my head what happened. And then we went to the cashier and we saw it. The same lady was standing there and she points at me and says, "That's the employee that ignored me and she refused to help me. She actually ran away from me." The cashier tells her, "Ma'am, that's a child." The lady then says, "Well, yeah, if you're gonna hire the young ones, you need to train them better." She didn't even ask me anything, she just turned around and she ran. The cashier says to Karen, "I meant that's not an employee, that's a customer." At this point, my mom realized the lady was talking about me and pointing to me, and she sent me to wait outside the store while she, quote, handled things. I waited outside for maybe 7 minutes before my mom came out with the bags. I asked her what was up. The lady apparently thought I was staff because I was wearing a black cardigan. I was wearing my school uniform under it very visibly. I had on white socks, white shoes, a white shirt, and blue skirt and tie with my school monogram. She said she thought I didn't want to help her because she's black. My mom cut that crap out real quick and she said she'd better leave us alone and stop talking before the police gets called for her putting her hands on me. Why was she like this? I'll tell you why, OP, because some people literally think that anyone in any sort of uniform is an employee, I swear. Just by reading all these posts. And just reading the part where mom was like, "Hey, go outside, I will handle this woman." Like that is how you handle it, mom. Bravo. I also love how she shut down that crap that Karen tried to pull. "No, lady, she didn't help you because of what you look like. It's because my daughter is 12 years old, not a worker." And this person shares this comment about a time a Karen tried to swing on them. This person says, "This is a short one. I was at my favorite hardware store, just searching for a good crowbar, never mind why. The staff at the local place don't wear any uniforms, just clean, professional garb. I was dressed like a retired sailor caught in the middle of a project without a crowbar, which is to say, nothing like the actual employees. I find a nice crowbar, not too heavy, not too unwieldy, and not too long. A nice compact crowbar, which is exactly what I was looking for. I was holding it, about to head up front to pay, when I hear a lady clearing her throat. The woman goes, "Ahem." I then look behind me and I say, "Hi, am I in your way? What do you need?" What followed was a standard Karen confrontation. She demanded, she screamed, I shrugged, yada yada yada. And then, when she'd had enough of my smart comments because I made such comments, she insulted and then she tried to slap me. I raised my hand to block her swing, the hand that had the crowbar in it, of course. The end result is that she went to the hospital with a broken wrist. Allegedly, and I was almost arrested for assault. I was only saved by the security tapes that caught the entire encounter. So this is more of an I used to work here but no longer do sort of story. I used to work for a very well-known craft store that also sold a lot of fabrics. I was so excited to get hired on at this store because I absolutely loved shopping here. My love for this store quickly went to crap. We were forced to wear these huge neon green aprons that we weren't allowed to take home and wash. I'm also a small woman, about 5'3". My apron came down to my ankles and my managers refused to order me a smaller size. Along with my apron dress, I was also scheduled 4 to 8 hours a week. I basically got paid enough to afford the gas to drive to work. I also had this manager who hated me for no apparent reason. I'd ask for a quick restroom break and I'd get threatened with a write-up. If I showed up early for work, I would get accused of trying to rip off the company for extra money. Just blatant harassment. It's also worth noting that I worked here for 4 months and none of the managers, including the GM, remembered my name. the breaking point for me was when I got my new schedule for the week, and my GM had me down to work 12 to 14-hour shifts every day that week. I told my GM about my college class hours, and she told me to just skip my classes because they needed me more since she was going on vacation to Mexico. I just laughed, and I thought, no, you can't remember my name, and now you're gonna work me to death because you want a vacation? That is not going to happen. I didn't show up for work that first 14-hour shift for the week, and no one noticed. Fast forward to the end of the week and no calls from anyone, and I thought at that point, okay, peace out. And now for the good part. I hadn't worked there for about 3 months when I get a random phone call one day. I answer and I'm instantly getting screamed at by some super pissed off lady. I deleted the store number, so I didn't realize it was my old manager calling me. She's screaming at me over the phone saying, "Where the heck are you? You were scheduled to be here at 11 a.m. and it's 2 p.m. Get here right now." I answer and say, who the heck is this? She then says, "Are you dense? Have you forgotten who you're speaking to?" I respond, yes, actually. She then says, "I'm writing you up as soon as you get here. You'd better get here as soon as possible because we need you." The crazy witch hangs up the phone and I'm sitting there like, did she just now realize that I haven't been showing up for work? There's no way, right? Well, I decide to be an ass and I show up to the store. I walked right up to my old boss, hoping she'd just lay into me so I could get her fired for yelling at a customer. But no, she didn't even recognize who I was. I end up buying some mermaid print fabric and giving the store a super crappy survey and using her name personally. I blocked the store number as well, lol. Edit. So I really didn't expect this story to get as much attention as it did. But since it did, I'm going to clarify some stuff. Yes, they really kept me employed there for the 3 months I didn't show up for work. And no, unfortunately, I didn't get paid for that time. After my encounter with this crazy witch, I receive an email from the company asking me to give an exit survey about my time employed with them. And let me tell you, I dragged this company to the 9th circle of hell and back. I blasted the horrible management, the fact that I wasn't allowed to keep anything in my work locker after my shift, and the awful treatment of other coworkers by the manager. I even wrote that she got on the headset one day and she announced over the intercom that she was going to slap the dumbass out of one of the people working at the fabric cutting center. I did get a response from corporate saying they'll look into it. I think they took the complaint seriously because the next time I stopped by, there was a new store manager. Honestly guys, reading this post, I'm wondering why it took that long for that boss to get fired. Like, how are you the boss, but at the same time, that bad at your job that you don't notice an employee not being there for 3 whole months? Like, I'm surprised she was only fired when OP left that negative exit survey. And apparently, this happens quite often. This person says, "I once got a phone call from the alarm company a 1.5 years after I quit my retail job. This poor lady was panicking, saying, 'We need you to go to your store and reset the security system.' I respond, 'I haven't worked there for a 1.5 years. She then says, 'Oh, do you have the contact information for the former manager then?' We tried calling him and there was no answer. I respond, 'You didn't know he quit a month before I did?' She then says, 'Well, what am I supposed to do now?' I tell her, 'Lady, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. This store is 15 miles from where I live, and I quit your job a 1.5 years ago. Sorry, it's not my problem.' I never did figure out what ended up happening." And this person writes, "That is terrible. I have my own little story. I worked for a local coffee company, and they also had a string of cafes that had the same name. This was my first job, and I was so excited, but it was hell working there. I worked long hours, and they made fun of me, and I had little training. I worked there for about a month before I came home crying my eyes out because one of my coworkers made fun of me, and they were just nasty in general. My mom wasn't having it. She told me to put in my 2 weeks. I did with no hesitation. I gave my 2 weeks to the manager, to which he said, 'You can't quit. I can't allow you to quit.' I told him I'm working 2 more weeks and then I'm leaving whether he likes it or not. So flash forward a whole effing year later, and I get this call from an unknown number. It was the manager. The manager screams at me and says, "Mary, where the hell are you?" I respond, "What the F are you calling me for?" He then says, "You need to come in, we're short-staffed." I respond, "I don't work for you, it's been a whole year." He then says, "I know you quit, but I put you back on the schedule today, now come in." I just hung up and blocked that number. I've never met anyone so nasty in my life. A while back, I used to work for a chain store that we'll call Wally. I was doing loss prevention most days, but occasionally, I was on the floor doing sales work part-time because I was broke. I'm also female, and I need to mention my race. I'm very clearly Hispanic, and this is important. I had to quit close to Black Friday that year as I had gotten into the police academy for the city. It was now mid-April the following year, and I decided that I would head to the store after training with a fellow cadet. The squad needed a few cases of water and such, so we went. Now, we were both wearing blue shirts that are similar to the store shirts, but they clearly say Cadet Police Academy of so-and-so town. The shirt also had our unit logo on the front, and we were covered in sweat, and we both have shorts and boots on. Fellow cadet takes off to the snack section, and I load up 4 cases of water in the buggy. After getting the 4th case into the buggy, this woman, who we'll call Karen, very loudly clears her throat, and she begins tapping her foot behind me. I quickly load up the water, and I excuse myself for being in her way, and I start to spin the buggy around to head the other way. She then yells, "Where do you think you're going? You are supposed to be helping me." I raise a brow at her, and I look at her confused, and I say, "I'm sorry, miss, but I don't work here." The woman cuts me off before I finish, and I again say, "I don't work here anymore." The woman cuts me off again as she begins to spew racial slurs at me, and she tells me to go back where I came from. At this point, I'm beyond angry that not only has she not stopped yelling, but she's also insulted me and my race. There's a few people gathered at the end of the aisles at this point, and I gather my composure waiting for her to finish her speech. The woman finally ends her rant with, "You effing border jumpers are so lazy. I remember you, and I've remembered coming to you for help before." The woman then pushes me into my buggy. I just roll my eyes and said, "Are you done yet?" To which she just stares at me with this smug look on her face that to this day I can still imagine. I sigh heavily and I say, "Ma'am, not only is what you just said beyond rude, but it can also be considered a hate crime to assault me after calling me a border jumper and berating me because of my race. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to my shopping. I'm not an employee." That's when a good citizen at the end of the aisle scoffs, and he jumps at the chance to end this peacefully. He wanders off to find a manager. This is when the fellow cadet comes strolling down the aisle, and he slaps the top of the water cases, not having heard the commotion. He says, "Are you ready to go? We have to get back before roll call." Karen just glares at him, and seriously, if her eyes could burn holes, he'd be ashes. The woman exclaims, "You're just gonna let your friend go, huh? It must be nice to have a coworker cover for you." She then rolls her eyes and crosses her arms in my direction. Fellow cadet glances at me and then at Karen, and then he laughs a little and says, "Lady, neither of us work here." At this point, the manager comes around the corner, having been briefed by the nice gentleman about Karen. He looks at me to ask what happened. But before he could even open his mouth, Karen goes off like a fire hydrant, telling the manager that I refused to help her and then I pushed her in the middle of the aisle. The manager looks at me, looks back at Karen, and then says, "Ma'am, she hasn't worked here since before Black Friday." Karen starts stuttering and muttering to herself, but she used to." That's when the manager turns to me, and I explained the entire situation to him, and mentioned how she had pushed me backwards into the buggy. Karen butts in and says, "I did no such thing." The manager looks up at the ceiling and then points and says, "We have cameras. Don't lie." Just please apologize to her for assaulting her and all that stuff you said. And I want you to sit there and wait while I take care of having you banned from my store because I can't tolerate such rude behavior in my store." Karen does mutter out, "Sorry." The manager then looks at me and says, "Would you like to press charges on her? I can call and have a car here in 5. Long story short, the police do come, and Karen begins to cry and throw a tantrum as she's handcuffed, which does result in her literally being thrown into the backseat of a squad car. She ends up serving about a month in jail for assault on an officer. It has been 2 years now, and I don't know what happened to Karen, but I do hope wherever she is, she learns not to treat people so bad. I'm now a patrol officer for the next town over, and I carried that experience everywhere. It makes for an interesting story. And what a story that was, and what a poor decision on Karen that resulted in jail time. Like, I just don't get how people can go from 0 to 100 like that and not walk away, and the end result is them going to jail. Like, I'm actually curious, like, is it an anger thing where all they can see is red in the moment and not care about consequences? Or are people really just that darn self-entitled and they fear no one and think they can always get their way? Whatever the case, I hope Karen was a better person after spending some time in jail, but who knows, right? A while back, well, over 2 decades ago, I was heading home, but I saw a train being delayed for an extra 25 minutes, so I decided to stop by for some delicious McDonald's, mainly to avoid the task of cooking at home. I wait in line for a moment and place my order for a standard meal, no extras or stuff. The guy next to me orders like 20 burgers and a bucket full of nuggets and whatnot, but no drinks as a takeaway. I get my meal in like 30 seconds and I sit down to the closest table. The guy that was ordering next to me comes and he asked if he could sit down at my table while waiting for his takeaway, to which I just nod and move my tray to the side a bit, leaving space for him to put his helmet and gloves and towel down. It's a 4-seat table anyways, so plenty of space. The guy was wearing this baseball uniform, red pants, and a yellow/red striped top. I don't think much of it, only that he must be a coach for some kids team. I just keep munching away at my meal while Mr. Baseball focuses on his phone. After about a minute, this whiny woman appears and she starts yelling at this employee who's sitting at a table near us, who's clearly on break, that something is wrong with her order. Now, the yelling is quite loud, so Mr. Baseball just glances a bit upwards, not even close to eye level, and he says, "Hey, the registers are over there. That person's on break and we don't work here, so we don't want to hear that. Go there to complain." The woman just stares at Mr. Baseball for a bit, and then she proceeds to dump 2 sundaes on his lap, asking with increased volume, "Well, do you work here now?" She then proceeds to slap his phone on the floor while cursing him out. That's when Mr. Baseball gets up and he pushes her, and she takes a few steps back. He picks up his phone and he sits back down in disbelief with the mess in his lap. She falls on the ground shouting that she was pushed and she hit her head on the trash can. That's when I point out to her and I said, "There's nothing where you could have hit your head in range. Besides, you attacked him, a customer." This commotion attracts a manager and one of the cashiers to see what's going on. The rude woman's volume just increases and now apparently her chest hurts too. She then realizes that she was pushed from her chest, and now her accusations escalate a bit. She claims that she was groped in the middle of McDonald's. As a stroke of luck or destined by karma, a pair of policemen arrives. Maybe they were patrolling the train station and someone pulled them in. Or maybe they were also grabbing a snack, a coffee, or a drink. Whatever the case, the manager gets them to help sort out the situation. One cop tries to calm down the woman and she screams her ankle's broken. The policeman just says to her that she really shouldn't be rolling around on the disgusting McDonald's floor at a train station during rush hour. That of course shuts her up and she gets up from the floor. Suddenly, the ankle is healed, but she still feels that she was touched inappropriately by Mr. Baseball. At this point, the manager leaves and he comes back with the cop in a minute, and the cop states that the security footage shows clearly the woman attacking Mr. Baseball and attempting to destroy his property, which he was entitled to defend. Hearing that, the woman starts to scream, but the cop calmly interrupts her by stating that there were 10 seconds between the push and her falling over. So she clearly hadn't lost balance due to the push, and clearly she's faking the entire episode. Well, hearing that, the woman slaps the cop, and she screams something non-audible that I can't understand. The other cop instantly twists her arm behind her back and handcuffs her. Meanwhile, she just keeps whining and whining and whining, fighting the cops, trying to get free. The cops tell her that she's being arrested, and then asked if Mr. Baseball wants to make a report out of it. He just says his phone's okay and his clothes need a wash anyways, so he just wants to leave. The cops are okay with that, and so is the manager. Justice is served as the woman got arrested. Did she get what she ordered? Absolutely. That is great, yes. But let's finish the story about her dessert. At this point, Mr. Baseball gets called to the registers. His order is now ready. He gets 3 bags of food and he starts to leave. He walks back to my table and he grabs his helmet and stuff. As he turns to leave, the woman kicks him in his shin and spits in his face. And out of nowhere, while wearing his helmet, we hear pow, right in the kisser. Even as the 2 cops are holding her, she falls down and she's spitting out her teeth on the floor and a puddle of blood. He just says, with totally different, kind of with an F this B tone, "Oh damn, my leg, I nearly fell because you kicked me, stupid. Oh, I hope you're alright, I'm sorry, I hope you're alright." The cop just tells Mr. Baseball to leave, which he does. One cop then says something into his radio and starts to pick her up, while the slapped cop is picking up some loose teeth into a discarded Big Mac box. After the cops get the woman up, she spits at the cop carrying her teeth, blaming him for everything, to which the cop says, "Alright, so be it." He then drops the box on the floor. I leave after they leave, and outside, I see a few people, presumably the woman's friends, harassing the policeman. They get threatened to be arrested too if they enter the restaurant and try to cause trouble. So yeah, a whiny woman loses some teeth and she gets arrested for attacking a fellow customer, and she probably gets jailed too for attacking police officers. Again, how it got to that point of her going to jail over some ice cream, I will never get. Like, it's never that serious, Karen. And after that wild post, this last OP ends the episode with a wholesome post. Listen to this one. A while back, I was browsing a big box store while waiting for a prescription. I wandered over to the hair color aisle and I was looking at different colors, debating on switching up my hair color. I noticed a woman debating between 2 colors on a brand I knew that turned out really dark. So I recommend that she use the lighter of the 2 colors, and I told her they ran really dark. She was appreciative, as no woman wants a home hair color disaster. Just then, this older gentleman taps me on the shoulder, and he asked where he could find mousse. I just smiled, and I asked what kind he needed. The man had no clue. His wife just said mousse. So I thought, okay, no worries. I grabbed him the mousse that I use, and I told him it was a good product and I hoped she'd be happy with it. He then asked about facial wipes. Since I wasn't doing anything besides waiting, I took him to the cosmetic section and I helped him find facial wipes. At this point, my name was called over the speaker to come to the pharmacy, so I excused myself to go, and I told him I'm sorry, but my prescription's ready. He then had a moment of realization that I didn't work there, and he apologized profusely, and he thanked me so much for my help. The man had tears in his eyes, y'all. I asked him why he was crying, and he said his wife was diagnosed with cancer and she's bedridden, and he was out of his element buying lady products. He then said that my kindness to him was so unexpected and how grateful he was. I then hugged him and I said it's the least I could do, and besides, he helped me pass the time while waiting for my prescription. Now, I know it's not as crazy as the stories you read, but it's a story that shows that not every customer that makes a mistake is going to be a jerk. He was the sweetest and most polite gentleman that I've ever met, and I really enjoyed helping him even if I didn't work there. Seriously, I've said this before, guys, like the wholesome stories where it's just good-hearted people helping out other people are just as, if not even better than the wild Karen ones. Like really, in this day and age where it's a lot of me, it is nice to know that there are people out there who will help others and expect nothing in return, like way to restore faith in humanity, OP. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a psycho Karen man runs wild in an airport. It's such a crazy episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.